You are now tuned into Dark Waters Radio, the home for those who thrive in the enigmatic depths of cryptid and paranormal lore. Tonight, our esteemed host, the godfather of Dogman, James Williams, is set to captivate your imagination with an exclusive interview. Our special guest is none other than Jim Myers, the voice behind the enthralling Sasquatch Outpost podcast and the visionary behind the Sasquatch Encounter Discovery Museum. Nestled in the heart of Colorado, at 149 Main Street in Bailey, the Sasquatch Encounter Discovery Museum stands as a beacon for enthusiasts and skeptics alike. Recognized as one of Colorado's top 10 wackiest destinations, this establishment is not just a museum but a portal to the unknown. Jim Myers has curated an experience that delves deep into the lore of Bigfoot, an experience that ignites curiosity and challenges beliefs. As you step into the world of the Sasquatch Outpost, you're not just visiting a museum, you're embarking on a journey into the heart of mystery. With the largest collection of Sasquatch souvenirs in the western U.S. and an array of camping supplies to kickstart your own squatching adventure, the Outpost is more than a destination. It's the starting point of a journey into the wild unknown. Join us tonight on Dark Waters Radio as James Williams and Jim Myers explore the intriguing world of Bigfoot, sharing stories, insights, and the captivating allure of one of the most enigmatic creatures in folklore. Remember, the museum closes 30 minutes before the store, so plan your visit accordingly. Stay tuned as we dive deep into the shadows of the unknown.
Do things seem off? Trouble sleeping? Issues in your marriage, finances, or with extended family and friends? These are challenges that many men face, but you don't have to face them alone. The Men of Steel Prayer Group is here for you. We are a fellowship of individuals who share a common interest in the paranormal and cryptid fields, united in our quest for understanding the supernatural. Our goal is to educate and guide those curious or seeking insight into the supernatural, emphasizing the role of Jesus Christ as the supreme authority over the supernatural realm. Visit us at strongmenpraying.com to learn more. The Men of Steel Prayer Group, where faith and curiosity forge a stronger spirit.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? The one and only James Williams, Dark Waters, and I'm here with Jim Myers, and I'm excited about the opportunity to hold this discussion and this conversation. Why? Because I love talking about all things creepy, weird, and crazy. That's what we do here on the Dark Waters channel, and we provide you the opportunity to listen to people who are accomplished in this field. And Jim is a man who's accomplished. Jim, thank you for joining us. How's everything going for you today, my friend?
Things are going well. I appreciate you having me on, James.
No, man, I'm happy to have you here. And I'm excited about holding this conversation. I don't really dive into Bigfoot a whole bunch. I'm more focused on Dogman, but I do have a little bit of a wealth of knowledge on Bigfoot from talking to eyewitnesses.
Sure.
And I like to start the interviews here. Let's do a quick rewind. First of all, tell everybody a little bit about yourself. Don't go into your background because we're going to jump into your background.
Okay.
Just tell them a little bit about what you do currently.
So my wife and I, 10 years ago, built a store, a gift shop, and a museum called the Sasquatch Outpost. And the museum is called the Sasquatch Encounter Discovery Museum. And the reason we did that, one was we were starving to death trying to sell groceries. And we decided that people were coming in and telling us stories once they found out we were open to this, telling us stories about their encounters. And we decided we're going to get rid of the groceries and we're going to go full on with Bigfoot. And it was a big risk, but it paid off in the end. And we have people coming from around the world, honestly, to visit our store and our museum and to go on some of our trips. So I'm having the time of my life, James. This is doing what I love. I get up every morning excited about what we're going to do. And I know that's not the case for everybody, but I love it.
You know, I like the concept and the idea of actually living off of what you're passionate about. it's one of those things that I found in this field, in the cryptid field, is almost frowned upon. And I don't
Yes,
understand that. Why?
it
It's
is.
like,
It is.
if it's monetization involved in it, it's like, oh, you're doing a bad thing. I've never understood that. This is the only field that I've worked in where fair compensation for work is just not encouraged, and I haven't gotten that. That just doesn't make any sense to me.
Oh,
Man. I don't
I've
get
had
it.
people write me and say, "You're just using Bigfoot and you're taking advantage of people." And I'm like, think what you want. I'm not taking advantage of people. They're coming in of their own free will. And I'm not lying to people. I'm telling them stories that have really happened to us and others. And I don't lie about this. They may think we do, but that is not the truth.
Yeah, that's something that I think, as more and more people strive to be successful and bring things from the internet into the 3D dimensional world, that concept and that idea has to change.
Yeah.
For me, I've seen it this way. Everyone who talks about this subject is benefiting from it in some way, shape, or form. So even the smallest channel who attacks a bigger channel because of their stance on Bigfoot or stance on cryptids, you're benefiting because you're garnering an audience and garnering attention. If they could
Absolutely.
get to the point to where they could actually monetize, they would.
But they don't know
And
how.
most of them end up doing it, but they don't know how. And so, for those of you guys who like to attack, I'm always open to a conversation. I'll show you what you need to do to monetize, even though you probably turn around and still attack me. I won't care, because I'm going to keep on doing what I'm doing. But I do want to see people be successful, because I found, Jim, that as people migrate from that stance of there's no monetary gain for them, it's kind of like highly opinionated, almost religious aspect of, oh, this is Bigfoot, and this. When they migrate to where they actually receive some type of monetization, they settle in and it's about business for them, and then performing and providing a service for people. And it actually makes them better. It makes them way
Sure.
better. They formulate a business model that allows them to actually disseminate information that makes sense.
Well,
But it's
people.
just go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry. Go ahead. People believe this is kind of dishonorable to do what we're doing. It's dishonorable to monetize your experience with Dogman, Bigfoot, whatever. And my response is, look, it makes what I do better because I can focus on this all the time. And so I am able to get out. The rest of these guys have to go work a job. And I understand that. I don't have anything against that, but I have the opportunity to go out whenever I want into the woods, do whatever I need to do to try and have an experience with Bigfoot. And the only reason I can do that is because we've made this our career.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's one of the things that has to be torn down in this field in order for it to be successful, because everyone who achieves a level of success where they achieve a level of fame, they're attacked. And that's just ridiculous. So therefore, there's no progress in the field. And for those who are interested in getting truth out, there will be no truth getting out in any way, shape, or form if you tear down the truth sayers. All right. With that being said, Jim, let's rewind in your life and let's go back, because I found that everyone that's found interest in Bigfoot, cryptids, or monsters in any way, shape, or form, they have a unique upbringing. I mean, they experience things at a young age that most people never experience. I call them the chosen ones, is how I describe it, because their context of their mind has been stretched to prepare them for these encounters. Some people have experiences as kids where they see ghosts and monsters and demons, and then later on they realize, hold on, man, I'm seeing Bigfoot or Dogman. Some people have traumatic experiences as a kid that force their context to change, whether it be through their parents, through friends, through things of that nature. But they all end up in this spot where it's like, I have this interest in cryptids. Did you encounter or experience anything like that?
Well, I have to go back to when I was 10 years old, because when the film The Legend of Boggy Creek came out, that was life-changing for me. Now, in that film, if your listeners have seen it, it's not a bad film. I mean, it's dated by the way they did it, but the people in that film, the actors, most of them were the people who had the encounters. They're not professional actors. And they never called it Bigfoot or Sasquatch. They called it the Boggy Creek Monster, but that's what it was. It was a Sasquatch. So that got me thinking at 10 years old, is it possible that there are things like this out in the woods? Because I believed the movie. I thought it was a true story, and it was. And so then I had a kind of a big pause because I spent a lot of my life overseas and I couldn't pursue my interest in this topic. But when we moved back to the States and to Colorado in 2009, then I really started pursuing this and trying to figure out, where do people see Bigfoot? Do they find them in Colorado? And I started meeting people who had seen them, and it changed everything. I mean, I remember the first time I listened to a woman share her story, my heart was racing. And I remember sitting there listening to her and thinking, wow, so what I thought was true is really true. They really are out there. And she didn't have any reason to lie to me. She was a businesswoman. And that interview that I had with her launched me into everything we're doing today.
Do you think your experiences overseas had anything to do with your interest? Because you said that you did some missionary work overseas.
I think what growing up overseas did was, as a kid growing up, I grew up in Kenya, and we spent lots of time camping. We would go camping and have lions come through our campsite at night. Elephants would come through the campsite at night. So I learned over time that, you can live in harmony with these things. You have to be wise. You have to be careful. But growing up in Africa where all these things were happening, and we would go camping where there were animals that could kill me if they wanted to.
Right.
And so never happened, obviously. And it was exciting. I remember as a kid, with my good friends who I would go camping with, they were, it was fun. I mean, we always wondered what was going to happen at night. And that same attitude is continuing today. When I go camping, for my squatching outings, I never know what's going to happen. Anything could happen. And that anticipation of what might happen is what keeps me going.
Did anything supernatural happen while you guys were in Kenya? Because they're known for a lot of crazy stuff going on out there.
There was a lot of, how would I put this? I was involved with a lot of different people who were claiming things that had happened. I don't know, looking back, if it was true, but there were a lot of people who got into what I would say is bondage, some kind of, demonic bondage or something, where they were, they had weird symptoms and they would get sick for no reason, and they would have nightmares and all these things, and they would see things that weren't there. And so we had to deal with some of that. But looking back, I realized that a lot of that was brought on by the environment that they were in, where it was encouraged to have emotional experiences like that. And so I think in some of those cases, people kind of talk themselves into it, where they would fall on the ground and roll around. And looking back, I think all of those, I don't think were real. I think some of it was just, they wanted to be a part of what was going on around them. And so you kind of create that situation to happen to you. And the people who are there don't know if you're faking it or not. So the temptation was always there for people to fake it to be accepted in the community they were a part of.
Yeah, I can understand that. I've talked to eyewitnesses from Zambia, from Kenya, from all over the place. And it's, when you talk to people out of Africa, it's a different level of, it's just a different level across the board, from their cryptid encounters to the demon. It's old world stuff.
It's in your face. It's in your face a lot.
Yeah, it's in your face. And those have been some of the most terrifying encounters that I've had, that I haven't even told them because I remember one encounter I had. A guy was talking about what he called the Jaguar Man, which was an upright walking jaguar. And he called it OC. He called it a spirit called OC. And he started telling that story, and doors in my house started opening and closing. I was like, yo, homie.
That's
I was
crazy,
like,
man. That's crazy.
Yo,
you better
like,
stop
hold
this
on, bro.
story. Yeah, hold on a minute.
And I
That's
was like,
crazy.
hold on, homie. And
just listening, just you listening to it was enough to bring it on. Wow.
To bring it on. And so it was crazy. And I've had that happen multiple times.
Yeah.
But it's cool. So what about your parents? Did your parents, did they have any thoughts, preconceived notions on cryptids like Bigfoot, or was this something that you alone discovered and took an interest in? Was it encouraged in your household? Did your parents know about it? How did they factor into it?
It was me alone, but once both my parents are gone now, but once they were still alive when we started the outpost, and they were supportive. I mean, I don't know if they really believed. Out of my 4 siblings, I would say 1 maybe believes, maybe 2, I'm not sure. And I don't know what they talk about when I'm not around, but I'm sure that they are laughing, about and what they tell people. Yeah, I've got a sibling that does this and this, and I got this brother in Colorado who's got this place called the Sasquatch Outpost, and I can imagine people saying to them, "Say what? He's doing what? And what do you think about that?" And I don't know how they answer those questions, but my parents were always supportive of whatever we were doing, which I appreciate. And they passed away before we really got everything developed like it is now, but I'm sure they would have been with me. And they would have wanted to believe whether they did or not. So I know that my great nephews and one of my brother's grandkids, these boys believe, and they'll write me and they'll say, "Have you seen a Bigfoot?" Now, the parents, I don't think, believe, but these little boys are writing me letters and saying, "Uncle Jim, come back. We're going to see a Bigfoot together," and I'm like, yeah, I love it. I love it because they don't have any preconceived opposition to the idea.
And they don't, because they. And
if a person they respect, like me, their uncle or great uncle, then they believe it. I mean, they're like, well, he wouldn't lie to us.
And that's how it works. So they haven't had the opportunity for the context of their mind to be like cemented in.
Right.
And for them to come to the realization that there's something weird out there doesn't conflict with their existing belief system and actually destroy their existing belief system. I recently had a little get together at my house, and some people came over and we were talking about stuff, and I just started opening up and talking. It was like, I can't be real. I said, okay. And I just changed the subject. And they said, well, why did you do that? I said, because your brain can't handle what I'm about to say. And I understand that. And you're not set up to actually process this. And that's cool that you can't process it. I said, but when something weird happens in your house, whether it be spiritual or just pick up the phone and call me, and I'll help you process it when the time is right. Until then, okay, bro. And that's got to be your stance on it with people, man.
Yeah.
Because you can't force people to believe something that they cannot conceptually believe. But it's getting to the point now where people are seeing things all over the place, so they'll believe it. All right, let's talk about encounters. When was your actual first encounter with the Bigfoot?
So my first encounter was, I think it was 2014. There's a very popular lake about 13 miles from Bailey where it's full all summer long, campers. And there will be lots of stories coming out of this lake from campers during the summertime, things they saw, things they heard. And so my wife and I think all 3 of my girls, we went down there to camp because it's a hot spot. So we wanted to see if we'd have an experience. Now, my wife and daughters don't go camping with me very often because since over the years, the experiences have become much more frequent, and they don't want to have that experience. That scares them. So, but that first time I got up to go fishing about 6 a.m. and I didn't see anybody else awake. All the campsites were quiet. So I went down to the lake. There's a big rock mountain that stands at one end they call the castle. And around the side of it, there's some big rock outcropping. So I fly fish. So I just cast a fly, and I always look around, when I'm fly fishing, and I look up, and there's this very tall creature standing on this rock, looking down, all one color. And I looked up and I thought, my God, is that a Sasquatch? And right then a fish grabbed my fly. Cardinal rule in Sasquatch research: don't take your eyes off the Sasquatch. And I turned my attention to the fish, and I looked back, and it was gone that fast. Just boom, it was gone, disappeared, the Sasquatch. And so I know what I saw. I know that it was standing there. It was too big to be a person. And so I always believe that was my first encounter. Now, I knew that they were real, but once you see one yourself, then it changes your whole focus, because now you're a witness yourself instead of just talking to witnesses. So that was the first time.
Wow, that's amazing. And so when we talk about Sasquatch Outpost, the store, are people going to find, like a catalog of other people's encounters there? What kind of stuff are we finding? Are we finding evidence? What's actually in the store?
So the store is the gift shop is just that. It's Bigfoot souvenirs, and we have fun with the idea. And we have T-shirts that say, Bigfoot doesn't believe in you either, and we have signs you can put up that say, Bigfoot breeding area, avoid eye contact. And so I like to have fun with it, but I try to make a very strong change when you go from the gift shop into the museum. And the museum was built to be educational, and everything in the museum, we're not having fun. We're not playing anymore when we go in the museum. It's about evidence. It's about eyewitness encounters, plaster cast footprints. I mean, we have a lot of evidence in there. And so some people may believe that we're carrying on the fun and games or not. And I tried to make that definition very clear when you step into the museum, that now you're stepping into what's real as opposed to just playing with the idea in the gift shop.
I got you. So for the record, ladies and gentlemen, those of you who are listening who say, oh, Bigfoot's not real, cryptids aren't real, there's a whole entire museum that you can go to and you can see evidence. So all this, there's no evidence of Bigfoot. Carry your behind to the museum and look at the evidence. Absolutely. And then come back and holler at me and be like, oh, it's not real. Bro, when I tell you, Jim, that's the most disgusting thing on my short videos. I think I have a short video that's doing like 190,000 views right now. And every comment is, oh, that's filmed with a potato. Oh, that's not real. I'm like, shut up, bro.
Shut up.
Like, get off your sofa and go look for something. And then when you invite people to go look, they don't want to go.
No.
That's the craziest thing.
They like being a couch researcher, but then you say, okay, well, let's go out in the woods at night. And they're like, I think I'm not ready for that. And I'll say, well, you can laugh all you want, but until you've gone out in the woods and something happened, and you have to decide for yourself, is that real or not? What is that just happened? But people are afraid. I understand that. You're going out. Who goes out in the woods at night and walk around except for crazy people like me? So convincing people to be willing to go out in the woods. And people ask me all the time, so what if something happens to somebody? What if somebody gets snatched by a Bigfoot when you're out in the woods or something like that? And I'm like, well, hasn't happened yet. And all the researchers I know who do the same thing as I do, hasn't happened to them yet. So if that ever happens, I may have to reevaluate, but it hasn't happened.
So that means that you guys take people out on expeditions. And so you guys go out and take crews of people out. How many people typically go out with you when you take a crew out?
I do night hikes, and I'll take 5 or 6 at the most. And we'll go out like 7 in the evening, come back in at midnight or 1 a.m. depending on what's going on when we're out in the woods. If there's a lot going on, we'll stay later, and then we'll go camping, and we have a horseback camping as well. People who love to ride horses, we can take care of that interest of theirs. But Those trips are usually for just because we don't have enough horses. Well, we'll take 4 guests and have 2 of us as guides. Camping, I may take 5 or 6, but I don't take big groups. There's other groups out there that will take 60 people, 70 people out camping, and I'm thinking that's fine. I
No
mean, you
way.
do whatever you want, but that's a lot of people to try and manage. And I'd rather have a few people, and if something happens, we can sit down and talk about it, as opposed to be in a small town out in the woods.
Has anybody had a meltdown while you guys were out there at night in the dark when they heard something and like freaked out and tried to run off?
Well, they've never run off.
That?
I took a group of 4. Let's see. There were Navajo. I think there were 4 people. 3 of them were Navajo. 1 was a white guy. They were all cops in Denver. All right. Mm-hmm. And so I took them out, and I was really interested because 3 of them were Navajo. I wanted to see, and I found that with Native Americans, the younger generation, meaning, 35 and under, may not believe at all what their parents believe about Sasquatch, because they've grown up in the city just like anybody else. And so anyway, I took them out. So it was a couple, and it was 2 single guys. And these 2 single guys kept wandering off by themselves into the dark. And I'm thinking liability and everything. So I kept saying, hey guys, let's all stick together as a group. It's safer that way. And they wouldn't listen to me. So they go wandering down this hill again. And all of a sudden you hear this huge sound, like somebody took a Louisville slugger and hit a tree. Boom! Right next to where they were. And they came running back up that hill. They're like, what was that? What was that? I said, and in my head, I'm thinking, thanks, Sasquatch, for backing me up on this. Because they said, I said, what do you think it was? There's nobody else out here with us. And right after that, they stuck with the group the whole time. And but I've never had anybody bolt. And I tell them before we go out, if you get scared, don't go run in the dark, because you're just going to trip and fall and hurt yourself. If you get scared, let me know about it, and we'll talk about it. We'll deal with it. Most people, especially when we're camping and they're hearing stuff going on outside their tent, stuff walking around, pushing on the tent from the outside, making noise. I mean, I've had them yell at me in the middle of the night, Jim, and I'm like, what? There's something in it. But they don't freak out, partly because I think they're coming because they want to have an encounter, even though they don't know what that means, what that looks like.
Right.
And when they actually see one, then immediately what their attitude's going to be, because if they see one and go running the other way versus standing there and saying, look, I just saw something, walk over there, then I know we're going to have a good camping trip. But I've heard of other people, it's never happened to me, who when they were out on an expedition and they actually saw something, they got back to camp, packed up that night and left. So I don't mock anyone that does that. I think, just like you said, with people who aren't ready to have that conversation, if they're not ready to have that encounter, it's best that they go, and they'll feel safer by going. And I encourage them, look, if you're not comfortable, that's fine. If you want to, it would be hard if we're a mile into the woods and somebody says, I want to go back to the truck. Now what am I going to do? It's never happened yet, but now what am I going to do? Because I got other people who want to stay there, and one person wants to go back. And so it's, I'll deal with that if it ever happens. But so far it hadn't happened.
Well, that's good. And I tell you, what I found is that most people, they want to experience something, and then when they realize they bit off more than they can chew, it's a wrap. I mean, it's a wrap.
It's a wrap.
I ran a camera project where we were running cameras in the area where Sasquatch was active, and just the evidence we caught on the camera project was freaking people out, because people don't understand how fast these things are, and they can't conceive it. So we would capture something dart across the screen, but it looked like a flash. And then
Yeah.
when you slow it down, you will see something bounding across the screen. And I was like, well, that's a small Sasquatch. And they'd be like, no, it's not. Then you slow it down and you'll see the legs move, and they'd be like, holy crap. I'm like, yeah. So you want to go out in the woods and chase after something that moves that fast.
Yeah.
To where the camera catches the legs moving or catches the head and the face, but not the rest of the body. And people started freaking out when they started seeing the evidence of it. And all I can tell people who want to find cryptids is, go out with somebody who can get you in and out safely. Don't go wandering out, like you Billy Badass, because you might run into problems. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You really might run into problems.
That's
and I
good
admire,
advice.
and I admire the fact that, you take guys out into the woods and try and show them. That's something that that we need more of for people who call themselves doubters. I think they need to get off the sofa and go out there and see for themselves. I personally, Jim, I have no interest in doing it because I know what's out there, and I don't want none of that smoke. I don't want it at all.
I tell people before we go out, we'll have a little powwow, and I'll say, look, anything can happen. We might see something, we might hear something. The thing that we see more often than not is their eyes, because their eyes, like this picture behind me, their eyes glow in the dark, just like Dogman eyes. Can't explain it. I'm not even gonna try and explain it. I can't tell you how they do it, but we'll see that a lot. And I'll say, your intentions change everything. So if you're going out here and you're thinking, oh, this is stupid, this is a bunch of baloney, probably nothing's going to happen. But if you are projecting out into the woods, I'm here, I want to learn, I want to experience something. If you want us to experience something, because I'm convinced if we have an encounter with Sasquatch, it's because they chose to let us have that encounter. Otherwise,
absolutely,
we're not going to have anything happen. All they have to do is just stay away from us, and it'll be a very quiet night in the woods. But I think they tend to read our intentions, and so I say let's have a minute of silence and just even if you think it sounds stupid, just project this attitude of I want to learn, I want to experience something, and see what happens.
Let me ask you a question about eye shine. What color eye shines have you seen out in the woods? If you had to classify them, what different colors have you seen?
I've seen red, yellow, and white.
What is the white eye shine? That's what I was going to ask you about. In your opinion, is that Sasquatch? Because I've seen that white eye shine on cameras, and it freaks me out because it's in trees. I don't know how to describe it. It's in trees near limbs that are not strong enough to hold anything. It's like in branches, like small branches. That freaked me out for real.
I think it's all Sasquatch, and I think they have this ability to change the color. I don't know if the color shows their mood. People are like, well, if they have red eyes, they're angry. Nah, maybe, but who knows? I mean, nobody's talked to a Sasquatch to say, okay, when your eyes are red, what does that mean? We're just trying to understand and guessing. But I've seen all those colors in the same group. I've been out in the woods with a group of people, and we saw 15 to 17 pairs of eyes watching us, glowing in the dark, watching us from the woods. And they were different heights, they were different widths, and so that was a big group, but there were some red, some yellow, some white in that group. And I don't know what the different colors mean. I would be foolish to try and guess at this point, but all I can say is I've seen those different colors. Now, maybe it was another cryptid that we were seeing besides Sasquatch. Maybe it was a Dogman or something. But personally, based on what I've heard about other people encountering Dogmen, Sasquatch encounters are far more calm, quiet, peaceful, if you want to use that word. And I personally don't have any desire or need to ever see a Dogman. don't want that experience, honestly.
I don't think anybody should desire that experience. That's a whole nother ball of wax when it comes to encountering cryptids. And I think people have an interest in it until they actually encounter it. And every eyewitness that I've talked to who's like, I want to see Dogman, I've actually sent people coordinates and they went to places where I'm like, listen, when you get there, this is where it is. And when they get out the truck, they're like, yo, bring a DW. Something ain't right. No. You said you wanted to find Dogman. That's where he is. Go ahead. But it don't feel right. Well, you Billy Badass. Go ahead on. Call me back. Click. And they don't want it because they literally feel it. When I had my encounter, I literally felt like, nah, this thing about to kill me. It's gonna kill me. And that's not something that people get with Bigfoot encounters, except for when they wander into certain areas. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They just don't get it. So,
and Bigfoot will step out and they'll see the Bigfoot, and typically that encounter will last a few seconds, and then the Bigfoot will just disappear. And so they don't come after people. I don't have one verifiable story of Sasquatch physically assaulting someone. Now, could it happen? Of course it could. I mean, they're big, they're strong, they could tear us apart if they want to. I've heard of them doing that to dogs, but never to people. And I have this feeling, this is just my own opinion. Of course, much of what we do is our own opinion, but I have this feeling that Bigfoot and Dogmen probably don't get along, and they have a different perspective on us, for one, how they interact with us. And I think Bigfoot, more often than not, are probably protecting us without us even knowing that they're doing that when we're in the woods. So I've never had any aggression shown towards me. I've had them throw things near me, but they never hit me. They'll throw a rock at a tree nearby, or green pine cones. They'll throw them near us. And to me, they're just messing with us. It's not, if they wanted to hit my head with a rock, they'd hit my head with a rock, and they just don't do that. But I've heard what you said, James. I've heard people say when they were around Dogmen, I thought, this thing wants to kill me and eat me. This is not a good place to be. And it's just like you said, you can feel that what's the word I'm looking for? That tension, or that hostility in your soul. And I don't feel that with Sasquatch. I don't think I ever have.
Well, it's annoying. It's like, you know that thing has no good intentions towards you.
Right.
You know it. It's not. It's almost like it's your brain is here and it's receiving, and your brain says, "Wait, right there, over there, there's something that wants to eat you," and it's telling you that it wants to eat you. And if you bring your behind over here, it's going to eat you. So you need to leave. That's my experience was. It's like, nah, you need to get the hell up out of here because you're gonna die. And focusing on Dogman, that's what majority of. Now, there's been people who had encounters where they've actually helped them and ran things off and killed dogs that were about to attack their kids, all kind of stuff. But those are far and few in between. I call those the exceptions to the rule. And when you look at the data as it pertains to witnesses, you kind of have to look at it as a wide spectrum and say, okay, here's the Bigfoot encounters. Here's the peaceable Bigfoot encounters. Here's encounters where somebody did something absolutely dumb and Bigfoot got pissed. Or here's the encounter where they ventured way off into an area where no human beings are supposed to go. And then they found themselves in their house and it was like, yo, you got to get out of here. We're going to escort you out by growling and walking. But if they wanted to kill him, they could have whacked him. You know what I'm saying? And left him in the woods. So it'd been done. So, that's my stance on it. I have to agree with you on that. These are two different entities with two different personality types and different intentions towards people. I don't know where it comes from, but that's what it is, man. That's
if I took people out in the woods and I thought there was even a small chance that they were going to get attacked or have something happen, I could never take people out. There's too much liability to do that, let alone the moral and ethical responsibility for people. But I guarantee you, if I was ever out there and I sensed a Dogman or something, we're taking off, man. We're going back to the truck. We're not going to sit around and wait. And We don't get many dogmen encounters around here. So I know there's areas where there are a lot more of them, but in my understanding is it's mostly Sasquatch. And I understand, I say that because of the way they behave towards us. It's not aggressive. It's not angry. They're not trying to kill us or listen. They've had so many opportunities to kill me if they wanted to kill me when I was out in the woods. I'd be dead a long time ago if that's what they want. But I don't think that's what they want.
And how do the animals react to them? Like, you guys take out horses. How do the horses react when they're in the area?
Well, so they do. The horses, the horses that we use live on a property where Sasquatch comes all the time on the property, and they braid the horses' manes, and these horses are used to them. Now, they must have some way to calm these horses down while they're braiding their manes. But I was telling you earlier that I got kicked by a horse 3 days ago, and actually, what had happened was a friend of mine had bought 2 horses, and I went out there just to look at them with her. And I'm standing there, and there's a feeder there with hay, and a bunch of horses are standing around. And I said to my friend, "Hey, if you ever find them with their manes braided, let me know that. I want to come see that." As soon as those words were out of my mouth, I looked at one of the horses, and his mane was braided, one of the other horses. And I thought, okay, what's the chance of that? So I go over there and I got a bunch of pictures of the braids, and it's always 2 big braids down to 1 braid. And this is braided. This is not horses rolling around in the dirt and this is braids. You can see that it's braids. And so we're standing there, and I'm looking, and I say to my friend, "Hey, come here and look at this." So she comes over with her horse, and she got right next to us, and her horse bit the horse that I was standing next to. And that horse whipped around and kicked, and I happened to be in the way. And, but what I was looking at was this braid on this horse's mane. And so we've seen it multiple times, and they will be out in the woods. We'll have the horses tied up. We usually have a high line in the trees, and we'll hook them on there. We'll tie them on. And I've gotten up at night to relieve myself, and there will be one of the horses has been untied, and it's over grazing by itself. And I think, what? How did that get off? So I go get the horse, taking time back up. And the knot we use for the horses, if the horse pulls on it, it tightens up. And so that horse can't get off of there by himself. So I go back to bed. Now I'm suspicious. So about 2 hours later, I get up. This is about 2 a.m. And I look out of the tent, and there's another horse off grazing and had been completely untied. His halter was hanging on the line. This horse is just naked out there. So I go get that horse, bring him back, and I looked out in the dark, and I said out loud, I said, "Hey, I'm trying to get some sleep. Would you mind just leaving these horses alone?" And nothing happened the rest of the night. So, but they didn't hurt them. If they wanted to hurt the horses, they had done that. And the horses apparently don't care, because that horse let that Sasquatch come up and untie its halter and, let him go. I didn't hear any horse neighing or screaming, and nothing, just silence. So now we've had horses that weren't used to this. They weren't used to the Sasquatch. And there was one night in particular, this one horse did not like him. And about 4 a.m, so we tied the horses up with this horse on the end, because we knew he was going to freak out if something happened. So about 4 a.m, a Sasquatch screamed from the woods, and he freaked out just like we thought. And we have a shorter horse, an Icelandic horse, and I think this horse jumped right over that other horse, and they got their ropes all tangled up, and all we could hear was, noise and dust. And we get out there, and I mean, it was almost impossible to get them separated because this one horse freaked out. The other ones didn't even care. They didn't even react. They're like, "Oh, there's Sasquatch over there," But that's part of the problem when we get new horses that aren't used to this. They're the ones that freak out, but the ones that see them all the time, they seem to know the Sasquatch isn't going to hurt them, so they don't worry about it.
No, that's cool, man. That's real cool. That's good information
Yeah.
to know.
Yeah.
Let's swing the direction towards you guys' podcast. So you have a podcast. How long have you guys been doing your podcast?
So I had a podcast a few years ago that I did for a couple of years, and for different reasons that ended. And then I got approached by the Untold Radio Network to join with them and have a podcast under their network. So I've been doing that since February last year, so almost a year, coming up on a year, and I love it. It's on Tuesday nights. It's live, video and audio, and I love doing it. I have some great guests, and we have a great following of people who are faithful that listen every week, and it's fun. It's really fun.
And is the focus primarily eyewitness encounters, or is it personalities in the field? What is your primary focus for the
some
podcast?
of both, but I prefer to have eyewitness encounters if at all possible. Now, occasionally I'll get a filmmaker or someone else to come in who does films about Bigfoot or other researchers, but it's mostly people who've had an encounter, because that's what our crowd wants to hear. They want to know about people who have seen one, heard one, had one close by, and they just want to hear what those people think. And so whenever I can, I try to get an eyewitness on the show. It's not always possible, but yeah, that's my focus.
And how have those eyewitness encounters changed your thoughts on Bigfoot and what you believe about and what you've seen? Because what I found is, as I talk to more eyewitnesses, my database of information on encounters forces this change in my mindset. How has that changed you from just being a museum owner and an investigator that goes out in the woods to now hearing eyewitness encounters and recording them and spending that significant amount of time talking to them on the podcast?
Well, it's reinforced the idea that Sasquatch isn't out to get us, and because that's the common theme in all these encounters that people have. Now, they may have been terrified during the encounter, but it doesn't mean the Sasquatch intended for them to be terrified. That was just their response to seeing a Sasquatch. And, on YouTube, you'll see these clickbait where it'll say, I was chased by Bigfoot that wanted to eat me. And then, of course, you watch the YouTube video and there's nothing on there about that. But I've found that and I think I've probably spoken to 400 eyewitnesses by now, and I've found common themes that I've realized are very often the case. It's usually brief. It's usually if they see the Sasquatch at all, many times they'll just hear something, either hear a vocalization or a tree knock or something like that. And but in none of the cases has anyone said that they were physically attacked by a Sasquatch. So over the last 11 years or so I've been doing this, I've realized I would have talked to a number of people by now who had been attacked if that was something that they typically do. And that's just not happened. And so I've realized that their intentions towards us are usually peaceful. They're curious about us like we're curious about them. And so it's changed my perspective in that I've realized there's a lot. I mean, there's no way to know how many people in this country have seen a Sasquatch. My guess would be over 100,000, because you hear about people all the time seeing Sasquatch. They just don't talk about it with anybody because they don't want to be mocked. And so that's something else I've realized is there's way, way more people that are having encounters than I ever imagined everywhere across this country.
And I'll dare to say this: I think it's over 100,000. I think it's in the millions. Honestly,
It may be. It may be.
It's the mocking and the ridicule. And I know
Yes.
this to be true. It's the mocking and the ridicule that make people not want to talk about it. I have a block of eyewitnesses that are both Bigfoot and Dogman. It's about 200 of them that
Wow.
do not, if I can get these people to just interview, it would be the most phenomenal interviews there are. But they're like, no, James, I'm not interested. I watch what happened. I see how people are treated.
Yeah.
I just want to share my encounter. I said, well, can I tell your story? No. I wanted you to hear the encounter. I trust you. And so the mocking and ridicule really affects people not
Yes.
putting their story out. And it has this compounding exponential effect because as we hit this plateau and people say, oh, I had that encounter, and they relate to the encounter, but then they see what comes along with it. They say, well,
Yes.
no, I'm not interested in all the rest of that. And so you plateau like this, but it's way, way, way up there.
Yeah.
The people who've had encounters with these things. And like law enforcement, just in law enforcement alone, the number of people in law enforcement who've had encounters is ridiculous, but they will not do an interview. They won't. They just
because
will
they
not.
don't want to lose their job, because
They don't want
people that have a job that requires them to be well thought of and professional, they don't want to talk about this because people will then say, say you're an insurance agent and you start telling your clients about your Bigfoot experience, and they're going to say, I think I'm going to find another agent that
I'm gonna find another agent.
is normal, quote unquote. So yeah, a lot of people just don't want to talk about it. Now, used to be in our store 10 years ago, people would come in, they'd walk around the store, and they'd come up to the counter and they'd look around and see if anybody's listening. And then they come up and they whisper and they'd say, I have a story to tell you. Now people just walk up and just start talking like it's nothing. And other people in the store will start to listen, and they'll start coming in close to hear the story. So that has changed, I've noticed over the years, but I don't even know how many people had stories and didn't say anything to me or anybody else. So there's still a stigma. It has changed. It has lessened, but there's still a stigma attached to cryptids. And you must be crazy if you believe in that stuff.
I'll tell you what brought it to ahead for me was we negotiated a deal for Halloween with the city of New Orleans to do like a story hour at City Park. In City Park, they have like all these haunted houses, and there's this little island that you can go on. And they had a fire, and it was like, okay, well, we'll pay you $1,000 to come out and tell stories. Man, I sat out there by the fire and told stories. I didn't even promote it on YouTube because I didn't want the foolishness that came with it.
Right.
And I told the stories, and these are people who live in New Orleans, and the stuff that they told me after that about seeing Sasquatch in City Park, about seeing them in New Orleans East, I was like, what? And the stuff they told me about rougarous, because they don't call it Dogman, they call it rougarou. I was like, oh my goodness, this is crazy. And so the concern really is the ridicule. It really is. And that was one of the things why I didn't even have a camera out there, because I was like, okay, people are not going to really talk. It would have been one of the best promotional things I could have ever done. But it was like, nah, I'm not even going to get into all the foolishness that goes along with it. So people really just don't want to be ridiculed. I'm talking about NOPD police officers. I'm talking about sheriffs. I'm talking about firefighters, fishermen who run shrimp boats. It was insane, the stories that these people were telling. Mermaid stories. I was like, wait, what? I mean, all out of Louisiana. Let me ask you this question. Do you think there's a different differentiation or difference in the personalities of the Sasquatches based on the geographical locations? And how does that factor into encounters from your opinion?
I have found that in some areas they tend to be more aggressive. So their stance towards us is more aggressive than other areas. So where they would do, like around here, I've never seen that kind of aggression. But if you go down southern Colorado, there's people I know who are researchers that have had them sticking their face in the side of the tent, kind of, doing stuff that would scare the daylights out of me if that happened. Just aggression, they didn't do anything to the person, but they're showing aggression. And I think my opinion again is that Sasquatch are like us. We have different personalities. They have different personalities.
Mhm.
One of the questions I've often wondered is, if you take a Sasquatch from Louisiana and have them meet a Sasquatch from Maine, do they speak the same language? Do they have different accents in their own language? And because we do, you take someone
Mhm.
from Nolans and put them with someone in Vermont, they're not even gonna understand what the other one's saying, and they're both speaking English. So
Nope.
it's, Sasquatch, I'm guessing, must have, even across continents, the Sasquatch in Russia versus one here, I'm guessing they probably would have trouble talking to each other because over the decades, the hundreds of thousands of years, they've developed their own dialect, and they don't speak the same language as this other one. So, but yeah, I think they have different personalities, even within one family group. They have different personalities, and I've heard stories about people that grew up with Sasquatch around their home, and they were there all the time. And there'd be one, like the mother and father Sasquatch always had the same attitude, and they would start to have offspring, and there'd be one bad egg, and this one would do things that the others never did, like try and rape a girl or carry a little kid off, or the other ones never did anything like that. But this one, they knew, watch out, that one's a bad egg. And so,
Right.
but what that tells me is that they're highly intelligent, because you with a high level of intelligence, you get a different personality. And so, just like there's people I don't want to hang out with because of their personality. I know there's Sasquatch that have to be like that.
No, it makes all the sense in the world. That's the conclusion I've come to, that they have various personality types and some are more aggressive than others.
Yeah.
And you can't just pigeonhole each and every one.
No.
And I think it's dangerous when people try and pigeonhole and say, okay, well, all Sasquatch are nice. That's
Right.
retarded and crazy to
Right.
even think that. Or all dogmen are aggressive and mean. That's crazy to think that as well. There has to be a certain level of respect when you go into that environment in those woods where they are. And you have to know, all right, it's not about being fearful, it's about understanding. All right, if I'm not
Yeah.
comfortable, I'm not comfortable for a reason, and
Yeah.
respect that feeling that you're getting. And sometimes you need to back out of there and go about your
Yeah.
business. I've been fishing down in the swamps with my dad, where we'll go off way up in the back into the bayous looking for catfish. And man, some bayous you go into, and as soon as you come down, you're like, nope, nope,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
sir. We're turning around, turn that boat around and leave, because something's not right back up in there. You can feel it the minute you hit that area. And so you have to respect that, because it's their environment. They've been there a lot longer than we have. And I don't want no smoke with them. I say that all the time. I don't
Well,
want
I
no
think
smoke with monsters.
I think you learn to trust. You have to learn to trust your gut. And I was
Hmm.
camping with a buddy of mine, and I couldn't sleep. And 3 a.m. I got up, got in my truck. He was still asleep in the tent. And I just started driving around the area, and I start driving up this road. And this almost never happens to me. And I get this overwhelming sense, you better stop right now and turn around and go back. Do not go on up this road by yourself. And there was no reason for me to think that, but I stopped and turned around. And I thought, I'm going to be a fool if I don't listen to this and something happens to me. So I turned around. You just learn to trust kind of that instinct, I guess, that something is wrong and you shouldn't be here.
And that's a smart thing to do. That's the wise decision to make.
Yeah.
And I encourage people to make the wise decision.
Absolutely.
I really, really do.
Absolutely. Yep.
All right, Jim, we come out. Let's touch on a few things. So, ladies and gentlemen, so you'll know, I think you should visit the museum. What's the website so that you can find the museum and find the outings? And then how do they get in contact with you, or how do they find the podcast?
Okay. They can go to sasquatchoutpost.com. It's very easy. And they'll find on there all the information about, we have an online store. They can buy any souvenir they want to buy. But then there's a tab on the menu above the page that says Rabbit Hole Adventures. That's the company I started to do all the stuff that I do outside in the woods, whatever. And so they just need to look for the tab that says Rabbit Hole Adventures and click on that. And that'll list everything coming up this summer. They can book to go with us. They can reach out to us through the contact form on the website and say, you know, I'd like to talk to Jim about something or whatever. We follow up on every one of those. So if someone's interested and can't come to the museum physically, then they can contact us and we'll get back in touch with them.
Gotcha. And the podcast, when is it? Is it weekly? Is it?
It's weekly. It's on Tuesday nights at 6 p.m. Mountain Time. And we do a live broadcast that goes about an hour. And we try to get interesting guests. So I tell people I'm doing my part to try and find guests that you will find engaging, interesting. Your part is to tune in and listen. So, you know, I work really hard to find people who are not crazy, who are not boring. You know, that's our job, James, is to find the right kind of guests. And our subscribers just need to tune in. So that's Sasquatch Outpost podcast, which you can just look us up on YouTube or Facebook, and you'll see all a year's worth of podcasts on there.
Awesome sauce. Well, Jim, I've enjoyed spending some time with you, hanging out. And if you don't mind, I like to have you back during the third quarter of the year and just catch back up again.
You bet. I'd be happy to.
It's been an awesome conversation. So, ladies and gentlemen, head on over to his YouTube channel, subscribe. Check out the website. And again, for those of you guys who say you want to find Bigfoot, while we were talking, there was a comment that came across my phone that said, provide some evidence of Sasquatch. I mean, literally, while we're talking, when you heard that thump, that was me looking at my phone and dropping it. It slipped out of my hand.
Okay.
And I'm like, oh, I'm getting ready to go and say, hey, bro, here's the link to Rabbit Hole Adventures. Go find your own damn evidence. You know what I'm saying? And that should be this. I'm telling you, that should be our take as a community on those who demand evidence. Here you go. Here's a link. Go find your own damn evidence. Because it's almost like I'm supposed to curate evidence and give it to you. No, get off your behind, go in the woods and find your own evidence.
Yep.
And here's a way to go do it. You know what I'm saying? And that shuts all that foolishness up. If we had that kind of movement, like find your own evidence movement, it'd be fantastic, man. It'll shut up all the doubters and all the disbelievers.
I agree.
All right, Jim. I appreciate
Thank
you, brother. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a wonderful show, and I'll be back soon.
As the night's shadows begin to recede, we find ourselves at the end of another enthralling journey here on Dark Waters Radio. We've delved into the depths of the unknown with the godfather of Dogman, James Williams, and our distinguished guest, Jim Myers, from the Sasquatch Outpost podcast and the Sasquatch Encounter Discovery Museum. Tonight's conversation has taken us through the enigmatic world of Bigfoot. The Sasquatch Outpost, a beacon for the curious and brave at 149 Main Street in Bailey, Colorado, stands as a testament to the enduring allure of these cryptid mysteries. As we sign off, remember that the world is full of mysteries waiting to be explored. Whether you're a believer or a skeptic, places like the Sasquatch Encounter Discovery Museum offer a unique glimpse into the folklore that has captivated imaginations for generations. Thank you for tuning in to Dark Waters Radio. Until next time, keep your eyes open, your cameras ready, and your minds open to the wonders and mysteries of our world. Good night from Dark Waters Radio, where the truth isn't just out there, it's here waiting to be discovered.